Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Definition, aka the worst can opener you've ever had, and we're about to open a can of worms with the best fan theories before the finale. Best jokes as well, by the looks of it. Throughout this video, we'll be discussing who Dolores' contact may be in Berlin, who Serac's mole is, how Hale managed to recover so well, why Rehoboam allowed the rebellion to happen, and many more. Now, there will be heavy spoilers here, so if you haven't watched up to episode 7 of season 3 yet, then I highly recommend that you turn off now. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as you don't want to miss our breakdown on the finale, and with that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's dive into some of the best fan theories on Westworld season 3. Okay, so firstly we'll be discussing whose head the key to the forge is actually in. Throughout the season it's been told to us that Dolores has it within herself and Serac has sent Maeve after her because of it. He of course also wants to stop the rebellion, but taking her down will really complete his end goal and kill two birds with one stone. Everyone seemingly believes that it's in Dolores' head, but it seems far more likely that the key is actually within Bernard. Firstly, when we saw his pearl it was laced with a reddish colour, whereas the others weren't. Host pearls are black and human ones tend to be red, and thus this showed a combination of the two, perhaps hinting at the direction that the show will be going in the future. Maybe Bernard and Arnold are now combined, but there's definitely something going on with the character. On top of this, there's really no other reason for Bernard to be out in the real world if he's not part of Dolores' plan in some way. We've discovered throughout the season that she smuggled out copies of herself and Bernard. Though it was stated that he was put in place to stop her should she go too far, this seems like a really strange strategy. In episode 5, Genre, when discussing his sacrifice, Connells told Bernard that he was irreplaceable, and this points to the fact that he has a greater purpose. It does make sense that Dolores would dupe Serac into going after her in order to provide a distraction while she holds her ace in the hole. So yeah, I do think when it comes down to it, this will be a big reveal for the finale. Out of all of the theories on the list, I think this is the most likely, which is why it's up top. Dolores could have stopped Bernard at several points, but instead she decided not to, and from this we can gather that there is a plan for him in the future. Also, Serac has managed to capture a copy of Dolores, and surely if she was a copy, she would also have the forge key within her head. I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me, but yeah, I definitely think something is up here. The next theory sort of ties in with Bernard, and that is who is Serac's mole. Early in the season, when talking to Charlotte Hale, Serac stated that she wasn't the only person that worked for him, and this hinted at him having others embedded within the key character groups. The most likely of these is of course Stubbs. Stubbs is a host and can therefore be controlled, but he's also exhibited some behaviour that has played his hand slightly. For example, in the aforementioned episode when Connells was with Bernard, Stubbs managed to sneak into Serac's highly secure compound and catch up with the two. How he was able to do this is likely because he was granted access. He's also the only person that's been with Bernard the entire time, and it's unlikely that it's Bernard, so we can then assume that it's Stubbs as he's the only other option. It may be Bernard, but out of the two, I'd say Stubbs is the most likely, especially as we don't know what he was up to in that motel room. Unless it was watching Get Hot with a Fembot 9, which is highly recommended here on the channel. Anyway, the last time we saw the pair, William was holding a shotgun to the both of them. From next week's episode, it looks like the character is unloading it, and it could be that Stubbs saved Bernard from death by sacrificing himself. One of his current cornerstones is to protect Bernard at any cost, and this would cause a conflict with his mission from Serac. We've seen throughout the series that this can lead to an awakening, and it could be the final play by the character. This is also a theory that I'm quite certain on, but he may not be the only mole out there. Similarly, Caleb could be a spy himself. Now, apologies to whoever pointed this out in the last video. I tried for about half an hour searching for your comment, but I couldn't find it. But yeah, give yourself a no prize for dropping this. They stated that the show is clearly providing biblical references with the use of Solomon and Rehoboam. Therefore, we can look to Caleb too, and how his name ties in with the good book. In the Bible, Caleb was one of the 12 spies sent by Moses into Canaan. So from this we can guess that Caleb is a spy that has been unknowingly sent in to collect data on Dolores. We know that he's partial to a bit of brainwashing as he was integrated into a re-education centre and actually sent back out into the world, showing that the process did indeed work. Caleb has already been used as a pawn by Serac, so it makes sense that he would be able to take him once more and use him for his own agenda. As stated with Bernard, if Serac really does have moles everywhere, then by the process of elimination we can rule out Dolores being the one in her group, and therefore Caleb fits the role. I'm not too sure on this one, as we have just one episode left and I can't see how it would be revealed, but it would really pull the rug out from under everyone if the man who was heading up the revolution was actually unintentionally working as an ally for the other side. Speaking of allies, one big question still remains over the entire season, and that is, who is the final Dolores pill? In episode 7, Musashi sent a package to someone in the country, and as we don't know who the 5th and final Dolores pearl is, I think Dolores is the right term, we can guess that it is indeed her. But who could it be? Well, though I said in my last video that I think it's Teddy, since sleeping on it I've had an even wilder theory. What if it's actually a copy of Serac? Just hear me out for a second, don't hit that dislike yet. So throughout the season, Dolores has been replacing real world people with hosts in order to make her grand play. She did this in the case of Charlotte Hale and Cannells, both of whom infiltrated their positions really well until they were discovered by Serac. Now it is possible that this entire time, Dolores has been starting the revolution in order to draw Serac out so that she could supplant him. Think about it, before all of this, Serac was lying low and he'd been completely removed from every database on Earth. However, Dolores managed to draw him out into going public so that he would reveal his face to the world. Nobody knew what he looked like, including Dolores, and therefore she needed to pull him into public so that she could copy his face. From here, she could then take him down and replace him with her own puppet, thus gaining all of his power and assets. How crazy would it be if the hosts went from being subservient to then taking on the face of the world leader? It would send them from being the slaves to the masters, and Dolores definitely has a habit of doing this. Another interesting theory that was dropped in my video yesterday came from Tanev, who stated that the one in Berlin may actually be the real Dolores, and this entire time we could have just been watching puppets. It makes sense for the real one to not put herself in the firing line and to just hang back whilst the others fight it out. Perhaps that EMP blast did take her out, and the one we've seen in the previews for next week is actually the true Dolores that has come forth. Now we do see her rebuilding herself, and we also know that Maeve is in the finale, so it may not be true, but it's fun to think about. These theories are fun in a way until you realise they're not true and you cry and everyone hates you. Now the next theory involves Serac, and it's probably the one that you've heard a million times. That is that the character is dead and he is merely operating as a hologram. This is something I think we've all thought about at some point, but the further things have gone on, the less and less likely it seemed due to the character interacting with people. In order to discuss this, I'm going to bring up a post on Reddit that was dropped right after episode 4 and then kind of expand on it. The initial point was dropped by King's Leap, and he tied it in with Serac's origin story. In the aftermath of the attack on Paris, we see people in hazmat suits calling for Serac and his brother to come with them. The body of a cow dead on the ground lies beside Serac as he looks over the explosion, and clearly the pair were exposed to massive amounts of radiation. They actually made their own way into the surrounding villages, and thus were given no protection from the insane amounts of radiation that they were likely subjected to. It is possible that the pair worked on Solomon together, but due to the excessive amounts of damage done to them, their lifespans were severely shortened. Thus, Serac froze his brother and then finished Rehoboam himself. He died shortly after, and then Rehoboam took on his form in order to interact with the world. This would explain why Solomon has similar personality traits to Jean-Mi, whereas Rehoboam does not. I'll play a clip in just a second, but please pay close attention to it as we'll be discussing it later on too. Go into this with the mind state that Serac is already dead and that Rehoboam has his form, and it makes a lot of sense.
Welcome back. If you're saying this, that means you've awoken, brother. Our little experiment has worked. What is this?
A message for the damned.
Rehoboam saw in you and those like you the outliers. The fatal flaw that would have bent the world on its axis. It needed time and the right set of genetic information to restore you. You are now a better version of yourself. Rough edges rubbed smooth. No longer a danger to the world or yourself. I wish I could be there with you, Jean-Mi. But the man I was no longer exists. Au revoir.
Okay, so the main point to take from this for now is that Serac states that the man he was no longer exists. Thus, it is possible that the character died and we are merely seeing a projection of him. Now where this falls down is that we have seen the character interact with people and he even shot someone in the head. However, it is possible that he is either in a host body, which we know he has the ability to create, or that the times he took people out, it was merely a simulation. From the second episode of the season, we know that Maeve was in a simulation without realizing it for a long time, and later she too believed herself to be in the Sublime when she was also part of a fake reality. Serac could have created a simulated reality in which we the audience and characters were unaware of, and thus he was able to fool us all. This would explain why Hale had to don AR glasses to see him at the end of episode 2, and why he constantly has appeared as a projection throughout the series. We do see in the preview that Caleb appears to be strapped into Rehoboam, and this could explain how Serac is able to hold a gun to his head. Now where this falls apart is that during the Delos takeover, Serac is seemingly shot by Hale before revealing he's a hologram, and then we cut to what looks like it's the real one in Hale's office. It seems strange to have a hologram within a hologram and just overkill at this point. So yeah, whether it's true or not, we will see, and then we can add it to the definition fan theories that turned out to be untrue pile, which is getting bigger every second. Now before we get into the rest of the theories, I just want to let you know we're giving away a free copy of the Marvel Phase 3 Part 1 box set to one random subscriber. All you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts on the updates in the comment section below. The winner's going to be chosen at random on the 15th of May and the set will be shipped out from then to whoever gets the prize, so best of luck to everyone who takes part. Okay, so this theory comes from Mr. Trobot on Reddit, and like the other ones, I'll be discussing the main points and then expanding on them. The user went all the way back to episode 1, in which Liam Dempsey Jr. spoke to one of Serac's henchmen, played by Pom Clementieff. In this conversation, she accuses him of testing Rehoboam, and the conversation quickly comes to the conclusion that it's someone from within the organisation rather than from outside it, so we can rule Dolores out of it. Pom thinks it's Liam, but as we know from the series' overall arc, he doesn't really do anything and is so basic he even got the t-shirt. Now this does cause us to ask what is actually going on. Well, it is possible that Serac actually planned the rebellion in order to make Rehoboam stronger. We know that Solomon can make changes on the fly and adjust its calculations, so it makes sense that Rehoboam would be able to do this too. Therefore, Serac could have likely countered Dolores' rebellion countless times, but he still allowed it to happen. This also explains why Solomon was so poorly guarded and why it handed over a complete doomsday strategy by just being asked for it. Serac said to Maeve that he had been waiting for the hosts to arrive and that they weren't the real threat and that humanity actually was. This could be referencing that Caleb actually is the real one who will lead to the downfall of it all. This may be why Liam Dempsey Jr. said you did it, and why Bernard said that Dolores sort of operates with poetry. If Serac knew this would happen in advance, then he could predict that Dolores' ally would lead the revolution, and therefore he could plant his own spy by her side in order to have someone that he could control. The season may actually end with Serac's death, but then he could have also planned that too. Hell, the finale itself is even called Crisis Theory. Going back to the message left for his brother, the little experiment that Serac is referring to could be the host uprising which would lead to his death, and then his brother would unthaw and take his place in controlling this system. He would have all of his edges smoothed out at this point and therefore be ready to lead. It would be a big twist, and for a season that's been short of those, I feel like they're holding something off like this until the finale. And finally, we'll be talking about how Charlotte Hale is okay. After the explosion at the end of episode 6, the character ended up looking like Anakin at the end of Revenge of the Sith. In episode 7 we see her shrouded in shadow, but slight burns can be made out around her face. It is possible that this is actually a hologram, as we see in the preview for next week that she appears as one to Dolores. However, there are other possibilities such as the healing pen, as well as her new companionship. Hale leaked the location of Musashi to Maeve, and therefore we can guess that she got something in exchange. Though her family are dead, she may have went to Serac and pleaded with him to create her a new one which she could live out the rest of her days with. Serac has host printing capabilities, and the one at Arnold's house is now under his occupation, so she would likely have little other options. I believe that she has switched sides, unaware that Serac was behind the death of her family, and due to her belief that she was expendable to Dolores, she probably assumed that she was the one behind the bombing. Either way, it's good to see her back in the game, and I'm sure the show still has a few surprises left. Like Caleb being Serac's brother. I'm telling you, he's Serac's brother. Yesterday I was so sure that Solomon was Aaron Paul putting on a French accent, and then I got a tweet about it this morning, so I had to look it up. It's not Caleb, it's Sean Me. We can rest now. Now obviously I'd love to hear your theories on the theories and if you think any will happen. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of episode 7, which is going to be linked at the end, and if you want to support the channel from as little as 99 cents a month, then please click the join button below. We massively appreciate it, and as a thank you, you get access to content early. If you want to come chat to us after the show, either follow us at DefinitionYT or click the Discord link in the description below, and hopefully we see you over there very soon. This is a channel for people who are never missing television, so if that's the kind of thing you like, you need to subscribe to Definition. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.